Hello, everyone. My name is Christina Roman, and I'm the Consumer Education and Advocacy Manager at Experian and your host for today's Credit Chat Live conversation. Now, Credit Chat Live is an extension of our weekly Credit Chats, which take place on X every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, in these conversations, we bring together experts and advocates to talk about money, credit, and financial wellness. Now, October 16th is Get Smart About Credit Day, which is a national initiative that highlights the importance of teaching young people how credit works, because understanding credit early helps to build lifelong financial confidence. At Experian, we're passionate about supporting financial literacy in classrooms and communities, empowering people to make informed choices that lead to lasting financial well-being. Now, in honor of Get Smart About Credit Day, we're diving deeper into the topic of credit and debt management with two amazing guests from American Consumer Credit Counseling. We have Felicity Watts and Ken Mohammed joining us today. Now, Felicity is a product marketing associate who's passionate about simplifying complex financial topics and helping consumers to navigate their path to financial freedom. Many of you will recognize her as a longtime Credit Chat guest and advocate for credit education. She creates some amazing graphics for our weekly Credit Chats. I'm so grateful for all the time and work that you put into our weekly Credit Chats, Felicity, and I'm so excited to have you on our podcast. Now, Ken Mohammed is a counseling manager at American Consumer Credit Counseling. And since joining in 2007, he's helped countless consumers understand and manage their debt. He oversees the Counseling Center operations and is certified through the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. Now, together, we're going to be tackling some key questions about building and maintaining good credit, managing debt responsibly, and exploring the real benefits of nonprofit credit counseling. Thank you so much, Ken and Felicity, for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Now, I'd love to start by letting our audience learn a little bit more about you both and kind of what led you to the work that you're doing today with the American Consumer Credit Counseling. Ken, we'll go ahead and get started with you. What drew you to this field?
Well, I started in the mortgage industry, and it was probably back in about 2005, 2006, where I left mortgages and came here to American Consumer Credit Counseling as a credit counselor. And I've worked my way up through the ranks over the years. But I was counseling for probably about 5 years. I was also counseling in the mortgage industry as well. So it kind of, carried over. So it was definitely a good fit, and been here almost 19 years now.
Now, I can imagine you maybe saw some cases or some stories that maybe led you to want to pursue this side of it as opposed to just helping consumers qualify for a mortgage. Was there anything like that guided you to this point, this other side of helping consumers manage their credit and their debt?
Absolutely. So when I was in the mortgage industry, a lot of clients didn't know anything about their credit. And myself, I actually had to take classes to learn more about credit to help people get into homes. I graduated from Boston College School of Management and didn't know anything about credit. So even with a finance degree, they weren't teaching it in college. So I really wanted to get into the field and do what I could to really teach people about credit, budgeting, and really helping them understand the basics of credit.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we advocate for financial literacy. I also graduated from college, got a job, had no idea how to manage credit, how to manage my finances. And I made a lot of mistakes right out of the gate that negatively impacted me. And I had to work toward rebuilding. And it was only because I made those mistakes that I was able to, that I really started looking into how credit worked rather than having learned and having started off on the right foot, right?
Right.
Right.
So that's why I actually love that we get to have these weekly conversations on X where we talk about a variety of financial topics, and I get to connect with amazing people like Felicity and the American Consumer Credit Counseling, and now
Absolutely.
you can to really expand further on these topics. Now, Felicity, I would love for you to share how you began working with the American Consumer Credit Counseling.
Right. So I'm sure you can tell I am a very creative person.
Yes.
And so it's really amazing to me that I can use these skills for a company that I have such pride in and really respect what they do. And when I was younger in school, my best friend, when she got her first credit card, she grew $6,000 credit card debt almost overnight. and we both came from very humble backgrounds. So I've always been kind of into finance and learning more about it, essentially, to see what we could do to like help her. And that's what really started me on my financial literacy journey.
I love that. I love that. So you started because you wanted to help a friend out. I love that.
And I get to keep helping more people.
Yes, yes. Now, for somebody that's unfamiliar with credit counseling, because a lot of people, they come to us, they come to me. I get messages all the time from people saying, "Hey, Christina, I understand you work in credit. How do I repair my credit?" And I always guide them toward credit counseling. So for those unfamiliar about credit counseling, what exactly is nonprofit credit counseling and how does it differ from credit repair?
I think that's a great question. So, unfortunately, there's a lot of companies that go under the credit counseling umbrella. So, you have nonprofit and you also have for profit companies. So, it's very important that when you distinguish nonprofit from for profit, you're looking for an agency that's maybe certified or that is a member of something like the NFCC, which has an umbrella of probably 50 different companies underneath it. Nonprofit credit counseling is credit counseling that first starts by doing a budget with you. So they're going to sit down, really learn your expenses, learn what your goals are, learn what your stress points are, and then they're going to try and find a solution based on that. So, what we do is we actually do the budget first. Before we do anything, we want to make sure that expenses can be covered by your income. After that, what we try to do is reduce interest rates and payments, but we do it by working directly with your creditor. What we don't do, like some other for profit companies do, they let the debt go into collections, which of course ruins your credit, and then they try to offer some sort of settlement on the amount that's in collection. So by the time you're done, your credit is pretty much shot. In debt management, by working directly with the creditors, reducing interest rates and payments, your credit actually gets better over time, and you actually can start or have relationships with these banks in the future once you're back in good standing.
It's wonderful. So it's less of an impact and more education around how you can better
Correct.
manage your finances.
Correct. Every client we work with, they may not join a program to reduce their rates and payments, but they all go through a budget counseling session. And our goal is to make sure every client has a balanced budget, regardless what option they decide to go.
And that's especially important because right now we're seeing that consumers are carrying an average of more than $6,000 in credit card debt. And according to Wallet Hub, household average credit card debt can be as high as $11,000 with interest rates in the higher than 22% range. So, at what point should someone consider working with a credit counselor and what should they really look for in a reputable organization?
So the first thing you want to look for in a reputable organization is you want to look for Google reviews, you want to look at BBB ratings. So that's where you're going to start. And when it comes to actually getting help, you want to get help once you are having trouble actually paying down your debt. So for example, a lot of people will use their credit cards for whatever their expenses may be, which is another sign too once you're using credit cards to pay for expenses. But when it gets to a point where all you can afford is the minimum payment, or you can barely afford a little bit more than the minimum payment, and of course, if you cannot afford your minimum payment, you definitely want to reach out to a nonprofit agency. But the ultimate goal for a credit card, and I was taught this in finance, was you can use credit cards, let's say, to start a business, but you want to be able to pay the credit card off usually within 6 to 10 months. If it goes anywhere over that, then you're in trouble. And of course, if you're making minimum payments, you're probably on a 15-year to 20-year payout term. So that's definitely the time to get some sort of help, or at least seek what your options are. But again, using credit cards to pay for basic expenses, not being able to afford or barely being able to afford your minimum payment is really the two telltale signs that you're going to need some help.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because I don't think people realize. So, first, it's good to make your minimum payment in that it keeps you on track. So,
Correct.
you will have fulfilled the agreement of making that monthly payment. But I don't think people realize that making that minimum payment, you're going to be paying it for a really long time. You
Very
said
long time.
anywhere from 15 to 20 years. The interest that you're going to pay over that time probably doubles what you initially owed on
It's
the
actually
credit.
about yeah, it's actually about 3 times as much.
Three
It's about
times.
three
So
times as much
three
on
times
average.
what you initially owed in that time frame. So you're teaching the importance. Well, first, if somebody can only make their minimum payments, it may be time to seek out a credit counselor, but then you're going to work with them on that budget so that they can figure out maybe where they can free up more money to put toward that debt, and then
Correct.
what the next plan is, correct?
Correct. So when we initially do the budget counseling session, almost 90% of our clients are in a monthly deficit if you look at just their expenses with their credit card payments. So what we try to do is by reducing the interest rates and payments, it makes it more affordable so that they can cover their bare necessities. And when I say bare necessities, I mean things that are important to them as well. So if you have kids and you have soccer practice and they have baseball and all those things, everything goes into the budget from, car insurance to mortgages all the way down to gym memberships. So we include everything in your budget, not just, just basics, roof and food, or, keep a roof over your head and food in the fridge. But again, it's not a bankruptcy, so you're allowed to do certain things as well. But once we
Yes.
cover that household expenses, we then look at reducing your interest rates and your monthly payment. And if we're still tight at that point, then we look at actually cutting back. We say, hey, these are some areas where you can cut back. These are some national averages. For instance, getting rid of maybe some streaming services. If you have a health insurance and you might be able to get a discount on your gym membership. So we really try to do what we can to get clients to look at ways to reduce payments. Because again, if you have 20 line items and you can cut each one down by $10, that's $200 a month.
Yeah, that's important. Now, you said earlier that you start with the budget and then some people may go into that debt management plan, some may
Correct.
not. What is that differentiates the two? When does one person decide not to go into the debt management plan versus sticking with it?
Great question. So we do not enroll anyone into a debt management plan unless they can afford the payment that their creditors are offering, right? So we have clients who will call one debt management agency and then they'll call another, but little do they know the only difference between the two is the fees and the payment that the creditors are looking for are pretty standard payments. So they don't go to one agency and say you can offer these low payments and low rates, and then another agency, well, you have to offer your clients a higher payment or higher rate. It's usually the same across the board. So the only difference you're going to see is fees.
Okay.
So switching agencies is really not going to help you there. And that's really not the decision most clients have to make. It's whether or not you're eligible by having a balanced budget. And again, we tell them it's better for you to maybe get a little extra income, or in certain cases, it might even be best to put like a hold on your 401k until you're out of debt, and then you can put double after that. Some clients will have to make changes and move things around to make it affordable, and others might just say, hey, I have another option, or this maybe might not be the option for me, meaning they might be on internal plans already with their creditors, or they have some loans, and it's usually the predatory loans and the payday loans that don't work with agencies like us. So it might not even help to go through this type of agency. But the ones where we can offer benefits, some might choose not to go through it, some might financially not be able to go through it. The ones who do go through it, a lot of them say it was a lifesaver and they probably should have started the program a long time ago. So
Wow.
again, they really believe that once they see the benefits and how quickly the debt gets paid down, they even say in reviews, I should have started this 5 years ago.
Yeah. Now, can you kind of walk us through what a debt management plan looks like, how that works, how that whole
Yeah,
process works?
absolutely. Absolutely. So you go through a counseling session with a counselor and they talk about things even about your goals. What are your goals? What are you looking to do in the future? Are you looking to buy a home? Are you looking to go back to school? We actually talk about things that are stressing you out, how you got to where you are. Little do many people know, 90%, or I would say 75 to 90% of the people that we work with did not just overspend and get into debt. Everything was fine until there was a medical issue, a reduction in income, or some sort of emergency or unexpected expense. A really high car repair situation occurred, and then they needed a company like us. So we tell clients off the bat, it's a common, don't feel bad, don't feel like, hey, you went out and overspend. Now that you're here, let's find a solution. So we take you through the counseling session. And before, again, we look at the debt management plan, we say, hey, these are all the options that are out there. And we give them the pros and cons. We give them the pros and cons of doing it on your own, which is working directly with your creditors. We give them the pros and cons of bankruptcy. And lastly, we show them our program, which is debt management. And then what we do is we actually pull a copy of their credit report, inform them about what's out there on the credit report, and then we put those numbers into our system and it tells us exactly what their monthly payment's going to be, including our fee. And all of that's free. So we don't charge them anything until they say, hey, I really want to move forward. And the most they're going to pay is $39. But once they're okay with that payment that we give them, And a lot of times we're saving them three, four, $500, in some cases over $1,000 a month,
Wow.
and getting interest rates below 10%. Some creditors, depending on which creditors you have, will even go down to 0% interest if the program is your best option. So most creditors are under 10%, but again, a lot of creditors do even have with us will have a hardship plan to get even lower interest rates in order to help that client get out of debt. And the good news is too, unlike a bankruptcy and unlike debt settlement, if you feel like you need to have an emergency credit card, so if you need to rent a car or get a hotel or you have kids who are playing sports and you're traveling, you're still allowed to have an emergency credit card that you can hopefully use responsibly. And now you can actually afford to pay that down even faster now that we're saving you what we are on the debt that you put in the program. But we do consolidate that payment into one monthly payment. You pay us, and then we take that payment, divide it out to all your different creditors.
Okay, that's really important to know. And I like that you touched on that everything is free until you start the program. And
Correct.
then you pay that fee
The,
because a
the
lot of
actual
times,
The day you start is when that fee you pay the fee, so you don't pay in advance or anything along those lines.
okay, and that's a monthly fee typically, or how does
Nope, the
that work?
$39 is a one-time enrollment
Oh,
fee, and then there's a monthly fee, which for most agencies we're capped by the state, but I would say the average monthly fee is maybe $40, and that's, just fees for the wiring funds back and forth to creditors and managing the back end. But again, when you're saving someone $400 or $500 a month, the extra 40 is usually never a question.
absolutely. And I like that you also mentioned that you address that shame aspect with it, which likely there was a bit of a shame factor and
Absolutely.
trying to figure out how do I do this on my own before I resort to a nonprofit credit counselor. And people don't have to, you don't have to stay in that situation. There
No.
are options available to you. And to your point, they're not going to shame you about it.
No.
It's understandable that, we're in a high interest rate environment. Things happen. We just went through COVID, where people lost jobs out of nowhere, and there's constant flux in the job market. So it's important to know that if you're in a bind right now and you don't really know how to navigate your situation, there are organizations like the American Consumer Credit Counseling organization that can help you to navigate this in a way that is not going to shame you.
Absolutely.
Right. And so I do a lot of the social media accounts with ACCC, and that's one of the main messages that I try to get across on all of them is that you're not alone, and this is more common than you think. And
Yes.
everything that you go through with us is completely judgment free. We are here for you every step of the way.
It's so important, especially when it comes to finances, letting people know that they're not alone in the situation that they're in, because it can feel very isolating when you're going through financial issues. It can feel as though everything is your fault. You've made all of these mistakes, and that's not necessarily the case. It comes down to decisions, yes, but education as well, and
Yes,
circumstances that are
financial
beyond
literacy.
our control.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, credit is something that you can always rebound from. So in many cases, we've seen clients who will come in with a low credit score, they'll leave with a high credit score. And again, they might have an emergency again, and we help them a second time. So there is sort of, that recidivism factor. But again, over time, people learn, what to do and what really works for them that's best. But the goal is use credit cards for an emergency, and if you ever have to use your credit card, make sure there's a plan on how you're going to pay it down. Again, the budget is the most important piece from the first day that you start working with us and we do the budget till even after you're out of debt. You need to have a budget. So, multi-million dollar corporations have budgets, so a budget isn't a bad word. It just allows you to know where your money's going, and it allows you to make choices so you can choose where your hard earned money is actually going. It's not just, hey, I get paid, today, and who knows where it's going to be in a week. Within a week,
Yeah.
you want to know exactly where your money is allocated.
Yeah, and I love that take on it. It's putting you in the driver's seat of your finances. It's not
Absolutely.
just saying, "Well, what's going to
Mhm.
happen with my money?" I don't know where. At the end of your paycheck, you're like, "I don't know where my money went." And
Right.
it's like, no, when you have that budget in place, you can tell it where to go exactly. So this much went to savings, this much went to paying down my debt, this
Mhm.
much went to my mortgage or my rent, etc.
And don't forget entertainment. We put even in the debt management plan, we put something away for entertainment, for clothing. So again, it's all part of a healthy budget. And like I said, if you overspend, make sure you update that number and then say, okay, next month, this is what I'm going to do to compensate for the overspending. But again, it's just knowing where your money is going. It's not to really, constrict what you're doing. It's so you know what you're doing. That's really what it is.
Right. And oftentimes people see like budget as kind of like a bad word. And there's nothing wrong with saying like, hey, this is out of my budget right now. Like you should get comfortable saying that.
Yes, especially in this instant gratification society, and
Yeah.
this feels, especially with social media. I'm sure you see it, Felicity, that people have this desire to make their lives look incredible or to look aesthetically pleasing, and therefore that drives them to spend more than they likely should. And so it's that constant push and pull of like, or pull and tug of like, what should I spend my money on? Like, what is reasonable fun and what is excessive fun? Making sure that you're towing that line.
Right. And
Absolutely.
definitely not living above your means. Make sure you
Mhm.
stay under that.
Yes. Now, I mentioned earlier that October 16th is Get Smart About Credit Day, which is a great call to action for people to better understand how credit works and to use it wisely. So, in the spirit of that, let's talk about the factors that affect your credit scores and how people can take control of their financial health. So, one of the biggest factor in credit scoring is late payments. So, how do you all coach consumers about maintaining on time payments?
Yeah, so I was actually talking to Felicity about this before we came on. So, on time payments is one, as well as carrying high balances.
Hmm.
And not too many people miss payments or carry high balances because they want to. It's usually they're in a situation where the payments can't be made or the balances can't be paid down. Once you're only able to afford the minimums, those balances are going to move very slow. So if to make on-time payments, if that's just your issue because you're good, maybe bad with scheduling and you're like, hey, I kind of don't know where the bills are every month, you can set up automatic payments with your creditors. But if you do set up on-time or automatic payments, you want to make sure that it's for a certain amount. So if your minimum payment is, let's say, $100 a month, make that 100 every month, even when the creditor starts dropping it to 5, 90, 80. Keep it at 100 and you'll pay it down a lot faster. But automatic payments will definitely help you with your creditors. Again, go right online, go to their website. You can click auto pay and they'll take it out at the same time every month. And the good news is nowadays you'll get a text and an email probably about a week or two before that payment even comes out.
Yeah, so that's that good reminder of like, hey, this is about to come out of your account.
Correct.
Be prepared for it.
Correct.
Now, you touched on the second biggest factor was credit utilization. And
Yes.
we've discussed that debt management plan, but what are some other practices consumers can set in place so that they don't repeat the mistake of charging their credit cards to the max?
Absolutely. So some clients who actually can afford their minimums and they can budget for their minimums, they have enough for savings. You still can set that bar where you're like, hey, today, where it is today, that's the monthly payment I'm going to make until it's paid off. So, number one, whatever you're putting on the credit card, make sure you put that into your budget so you're not putting it on credit cards moving forward. A lot of people, they'll say, hey, I'll just take the credit cards and give them to my mom or put them under the mattress so I don't touch them. And then they keep that minimum payment the same every single month, regardless of how low the creditors are actually dropping the payment. So don't we call it the shrinking payment trick? And people will just say, oh, this is what it is this month, this is what I'll pay. No. Start with an amount that you can afford and make that payment every single month, regardless of how little that the creditor's asking.
Okay, that's a good point. So rather than looking at this statement every single month and saying, I'm just going to pay exactly, so my payment dropped from $40 to $35 this month, so I'm only going to pay 35. It's keep it at that 40,
40,
and then
yes,
you're paying a little bit more than that minimum payment so that you can pay toward that interest and that principal
correct.
balance, and then you're going to reduce that so much faster.
Absolutely. You actually replicate what you would do almost in a debt management plan. Not as fast because the interest a lot of times isn't being reduced. But if you
Mm.
find that, hey, I cannot get ahead, then there's nothing wrong with calling your creditors to see if they have a temporary hardship program where they reduce the interest rates for some up to a year to 2 years. And then that way, if you still do the same trick that we just talked about, keeping your payment the same, you'll see a huge, huge kind of catch up on getting that balance paid down.
Now, I have a question. When you reduce a person's interest rate, so when you're working with a creditor, is that reported on the credit bureau
No.
side that somebody's in a debt management plan?
So there is a CC notation that they can put on the credit report. we've repulled clients' credit, and for some reason we're not seeing it. So we're
Okay.
not sure. There could have been some state laws recently that prevent them from doing it. But creditors, a lot of times, they won't do it. They just say, "Hey, no." But when you do join a debt management plan, your accounts are closed. Okay.
Okay.
But here's the deal: if you're carrying high balances for a long period of time, chances are they're going to start shutting them down on you. One day you're going to go in and you're not going to have any credit because they closed it on you. So, we see clients that are starting off who started off in the 700 range, which I'm sure your viewers know is a pretty decent credit score.
Mhm.
And just by carrying high balances over a few years, they're down in the 580 range and they've never missed a payment in their life. So to
Mhm.
go from 700 to 580 and you've never made a payment, that's all just from carrying high balances. And once you get down to a certain, FICO score, the creditors will actually say, "Hey, this person's having a problem," and they'll actually start closing the accounts on you.
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
better
Well,
for
that's all good information to know.
yeah, it's always best to do it yourself. Keep an emergency account to the side, and that way, because when you're maxed out and you close that account through a debt management plan, it does have an effect on your FICO, but it's very little because the effect is not having that available credit, right?
Mhm.
It's your credit utilization changing, but if you're maxed out, there's very small room for it to change. So again, most clients actually see an 80-point increase just by getting the credit cards paid off alone. So
Okay. All right. That's good to know. Thank you. Yeah, because we had talked about how with a settlement, they're going to tell you to stop making your payments. And that has a very severe negative impact when you
on
stop making your
everything,
payments.
yes, on every account that you own. So
Yeah. Okay. Now, for Ken and Felicity both, I'd love to know what messages do you think are most important for people to understand about maintaining good credit habits in the spirit of Get Smart About Credit Day?
I would definitely say pay your bills on time, continue to pay them on time. And I would also limit new credit inquiries as well. Budgeting is extremely important, and creating an emergency fund, because an emergency fund can stop you from accumulating more debt in times of emergencies.
Absolutely. Thank you. Ken, what about you?
I agree 100% with Felicity. Creating a budget, having a healthy budget, understanding that a budget is a living, movable kind of thing. It's breathing, it's doing everything. Some months you might spend a little bit more on food, reduce something else. Sometimes you might have to go on a trip and spend a little bit more on gas. You're able to move things around when you have a budget and you can actually plan. So that allows you to say, hey, based on what I'm seeing, and when I say budget, I'm not talking about for this week. My budget, I have budgeted out all the way till after New Year's, right? So I know what I should be putting in savings all the way up until almost New Year's. You can use an app, you can use an Excel spreadsheet, depending on how good you are with Excel. But there are tons and tons of tools to create a budget and create that budget out long term so okay, these are the paychecks where I can save. This month I know it's Christmas, so I'm not, I got to put this to the side. What am I going to maybe have to move around now? So being able to move your budget around months and months in advance and you knowing what's coming in advance, the chances are you're going to be a lot more successful, especially when it comes to credit. I also recommend that, there's nothing wrong with having a credit card, right? You have to use them for renting a car, for getting a hotel room, and there's nothing wrong with that. But have that money to pay it off in full monthly if you can. And worst case scenario, 10 months is what you should be paying off if you have to charge on your credit card. It shouldn't be 2 years or 3 years, or you shouldn't be charging not knowing when you can pay it off in full. So that's the best way that I've seen. And of course, never go over 35% of the limit is kind of the rule. I usually tell clients 50%. Most people kind of don't really calculate out the 35%. But if you have a $10,000 credit card, once you get to 5,000, that's your max. After that, it
Mhm.
will start affecting your credits. Doing a budget, using credit cards sparingly, and if you do have to use them, know the rules. With all the AI and Chat GPT that's out there, you can just literally type in your phone, "Hey, where should I kind of cap my credit card balance before it becomes an issue or starts really affecting my?"
Yeah, we always try to tell people just so that they can avoid getting and staying into debt is keep it below 10%. I know that sometimes that's not realistic based on a person's situation, but to your point, have that plan for okay, I'm going over, how am I going to pay that down? How
Exactly.
long is it going to take me to pay that down? Another great resource that I liked to use when I was in the debt payoff process is a credit calculator or credit card calculator
Yep.
where I could
Right.
put in my interest rate, how much I currently owed, and when I'd like to have that paid down. And it gave me like a list of payments that I needed to make in order to
Correct.
hit that time frame. So that's another fantastic free tool that's available for somebody to check out if they're in the debt payoff process.
Absolutely. And the easiest way to do that, and that's why we use the 10-month rule when we were in finance school. They would say it's most people can take the balance and divide it by 10, right? And that's what you should be paying every month, whether it's 10 months or you go a little over because of the interest. But if you stick within that divide by 10, this is what my monthly payment should be based on the balance. You should be able to pay it off within a reasonable amount of time. And people
Awesome.
should, yeah, and people should know too. We're seeing the real change that we're seeing in clients right now is we're seeing a lot more people who have 4-year college degrees, and the average income, I would say 5 years ago, pre-COVID, was maybe 50,000 a year for the people we're helping. Now, I think it's well over 70, well over 80. So it doesn't matter how much money you're making. This is not a situation that's hurting, let's say, people who are possibly poor, but it's hurting all income levels and education levels as well. So
Yeah.
our 4-year college degree clients have over doubled, I want to say, in the past 5 to 10 years.
Wow, that's good to know. Now, regarding debt settlement, I know we touched on this a little bit. Debt settlement and credit repair services, they often get a lot of attention. I
Mhm.
told you that I've received messages from friends, family members asking about debt settlement and credit repair and if that's a route that they should go. They're popular, but they have downsides. So,
Correct.
why might something like credit repair and debt settlement be an unfavorable option for consumers?
So if you have current debt, it's usually very hard to do both, right? Credit repair, what they'll try and do is remove items from your credit report. But if you have a current credit card or you're still with that credit card company, they're not going to stop reporting like a collection agency might stop reporting, or they're not going to have trouble finding the paperwork that you originally signed to open the account like a collection agency might have trouble finding. So usually when you have current debt, it's very hard to do credit repair, and the solution is to let it go past due into collections to make that work. Debt settlement is not terribly bad if you have a lot of collection debt, or if you simply have debt that doesn't work with a debt management agency and the only other option is a debt settlement. We actually see most clients bounce back faster from a bankruptcy than from debt settlement. But if you go into a debt settlement company and they can negotiate favorable terms, and let's say you have a lump sum money or a lump sum amount to actually do the settlement and do it pretty quickly, that's fine. But we're seeing a lot of clients getting sued before they can save the amount they need to do the settlement. Again, even when people have lump sums, I wouldn't advise it because you pay off these settlements, and what do you do in case of an emergency? Now you have no access to credit. So I really have been trying to find some positive with that settlement, but again, unless it's a situation where you're like, hey, I got the money, I'm ready to settle, and I got plenty in savings, and which it really isn't most people, but if you have plenty in savings and you got a lump sum that you can turn around and settle on or work with a debt settlement company to take care of a debt, then fine. It's already charged off. The damage to your credit's already been done, right? Paying off a collection account is not going to fix your FICO score. It just removes, it just looks better when it gets removed by credit repair. Or if it's paid
Mhm.
off, it just looks better to future lenders that you still don't owe anything and you're not in the possibility range of getting sued. But we see a lot of people getting sued. Maybe if you got 5 accounts, two will sue you or one will sue you, where the rest will do a settlement. That's really when we start getting phone calls from those people like, hey, I'm getting sued now. Can you guys do anything? And usually at that point, it's a bit too late.
Wow. Okay. So then what is the sustainable alternative to these services? It would be credit counseling, correct?
Credit counseling, if you're charged off, even credit counseling can help you, but it's not necessarily foolproof. So the best thing to do is find out what you can afford, and if you want to, you can really do a settlement on your own, right? You can just save the money, put it in the bank, wait till you have enough to offer 50 cents on the dollar to a collection agency. But a couple of things: when you have collection accounts, at any point they can take you to court. Go to court, right? So do a budget and go to court. Don't get a summons to show up to pay on a debt and don't go, because a lot of times they will side with you if you show up with the budget and show what you can afford to pay. So collection accounts, again, pay what you can afford. It's definitely cheaper to do a settlement at that point. But if you can't do the settlement, give them, again, do a budget, see what you can afford to give them, and start making payments.
A lot of really great advice shared today. I kind of want to ask this one final question for Felicity and Ken. If somebody is listening today and they want to take their first step toward improving their financial health, what's one thing that they can do right now?
Improving financial health. Well, number one, if you're in credit card debt, which is probably most Americans right now, definitely seek out a nonprofit debt management agency or give us a call, American Consumer Credit Counseling. That's number one. Number two, like Felicity had mentioned earlier, just by simply doing a budget is huge. Um, again, working for a company, and there's, like we were saying before, billion-dollar agencies have a budget because you want to know where your money's going, and it's powerful. And if you know the math, you kind of know the future. That's what we say. That's why our CEO says all the time, I know I can tell the future. And we're like, how can you tell the future? He's like, because I know math. And if you do math and you do a budget, you know what's coming down the line. You know what you can work towards, and kind of what goals you can accomplish in the future just simply by budgeting.
Right. And to add on to Ken, I also want to just throw in financial literacy. That's something that you can start immediately because it'll give you the tools to keep you out of debt as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I cannot agree with you more. Now, Ken and Felicity, where can our listeners go to learn more about you and the incredible work that you are doing?
Absolutely. Well, Felicity, I mean, social media, you can it's meant to talk about that.
Well, sure. First, you can go to consumercredit.com, and for them, you can fill out a form to get a free consultation. We are also on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Threads. We're just about
You're
everywhere.
everywhere.
Yeah,
And you're
Reddit,
also
don't
on
forget
our
Reddit.
weekly credit chats. Oh, and
That's
Reddit too.
right. You'll
Yeah.
you'll see me a lot more on Twitter as well.
Yeah. So, and again, if you need help and you go to our website and fill out a form, you'll be talking to one of our 55 counselors. And again, I work closely with the counselors, and we help thousands of clients a month. So there's no situation that we haven't seen. And if there's ever a situation that they need help with, they always can give me a call. Again, all the support staff have been here at least 10 years or more.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. This has been a really thoughtful and informative conversation. I want to thank Felicity and Ken for joining us today to share their expertise. Now, as we celebrate Get Smart About Credit Day, it really is a great reminder that credit isn't just about numbers, it's about knowledge, habits, and empowerment. Now, the
Absolutely.
more we understand how credit works, the more confident we can be in making financial decisions that support our goals. So, thank you again to everyone who tuned in to this week's Credit Chat Live. Again, this is a continuation of our weekly credit chats, which take place on X every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And this really is conversations where we are committing to helping consumers build stronger financial lives. So don't forget to follow us at Experian. You can come chat with Felicity on Wednesdays. She's usually there offering fantastic tips from the American Consumer Credit Counseling X account. We're very grateful to have you both here today. And I'm Christina Roman again. I'm the Consumer Education and Advocacy Manager. And thank you so much for joining us for today's Credit Chat Live. Until next time, stay smart about credit.
Thank you.
Thank you.